Been fortunate to, through my own journey of therapy and healing and everything that goes with that, I've been fortunate to build a really strong
And what's the kind of causes you want to back strongly?
homelessness or cancer or domestic violence. It might be animals, and you can give so much more.
What do you see the biggest trends coming out of men's mental health or men's mental health issues?
With mental health, hard because everything is so different. Whether it's someone that's struggling with anxiety, whether it's someone that's struggling through the experiences that they've been through, or different types of trauma, or drugs and alcohol, and obviously there's trauma underlying all of those things. You can't look at someone and say, oh, I know what's going to fix you.
Crying out is, letting the emotion go or whatever is built up.
I love crying.
But not everybody has the privilege of crying.
I never used to cry. Because I had sort of numbed myself and pushed stuff down and pretended everything was okay for so many years.
In your observation of your closer friends who are sharing their stories with you, what do you see most of them are struggling with beyond?
Struggle to find meaningful relationships, whether that's with a partner or whether that's with friendships or family.
Young people are not getting into relationships, or young people are not socializing enough.
One of the biggest contributing factors has got to be technology. It's got to be phones, games, apps.
Welcome, Steve. How are you?
I'm pretty well, Dev. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming along. We've been trying to arrange this conversation for a bit, but finally we have.
Yeah, mate, I'm very grateful for you reaching out, for having me here. Sorry that it took so long to get here, but I'm happy that we are now.
So glad that we are here. I think there is quite a few things to talk in your story, but I want you to share your story and
Please do.
And also lay the land on how your purpose has evolved.
And do you want me to start right at the start?
Yes,
How
please.
far back are we going? Yeah.
Yes, please.
So I grew up in Perth. I'm the eldest of 4 children. Got a beautiful family. Grew up, mum and dad are still very much in love. Had a lovely sort of caring childhood, but I never really felt like I fit in throughout school. All throughout school, I sort of felt like I was different and that I wasn't really one of the cool kids, and I wasn't necessarily someone that was into study or anything either. I just kind of sat in the middle there and didn't really know where I fit. I struggled to find like belonging and community and all of that sort of stuff. And then coming out of school, when I came out of my schooling, I deliberately went out to try and change who I was. So I went out to try and be popular and started working in a gym and started working out every day. And then I got into girls and drinking and smoking cigarettes, and drugs and things like that came along as well. And over a period of 5-6 years, I kind of found myself so far from the person that I mentioned before. This young, fairly gentle kid that loved birds and was a great brother and son. And I was so far over here that I essentially just lost who I thought I was. And it took me a long time to unwind all of that and to dig into all of the deeper stuff through working with professionals on my mental health and seeking support. And it's a long journey, and it's not an ongoing journey. I think I've shared with you when we caught up for a coffee that I am conscious of taking steps every day to look after my mental health, because if I don't, I recognise that I can slip pretty quickly and get fairly crippled with anxiety and general sadness and things like that. But what I have been fortunate to build now is a really strong community around me of men and women and family and friends and colleagues that have my back in all areas of life and that I can talk to really openly. And I'm not scared of being pretty vulnerable and talking about how I feel and my journey and everything that goes with that, in the hope that it might have an impact and influence for someone else.
Thank you. I think there is a strong journey out there in working on yourself and having those conversations deeply, meaningfully with yourself. And I think probably the part of the play is sitting with yourself and understanding where you're going. Can you share those initial moments when you have that strong, brick wall, or you're sitting with yourself and that's the moment for you to see or accept things were going somewhere?
Like a moment of change. I remember I've got this one memory of a little bit heavy. I've got one memory of lying in bed watching videos about suicide, and I'd lost a couple of friends to suicide. earlier on, and I knew within myself that I was so unhappy and I was sort of miserable and I didn't know where my life was going. I didn't have a lot of purpose, and I was watching these videos lying in bed crying at the time and thought, if I don't do something right now to change, like I'm either going to end up, I don't know, so far down this hole that I won't be able to get out, or I might end up passing away. And I remember thinking about my mum and thinking, I don't want my mum to lose her son, because I was quite close with my mum. And that memory, that would be, it's probably 7, 8 years ago now, but it sticks with me pretty clearly.
Wow. It's a rabbit hole when, people would think, oh, how did you end up there? But I think it's just a rabbit hole and it just escalates from one to other, and then things go bad. But how have you, what do you think is the story of resilience for you from that point?
Yeah, I think, as I said to you a moment ago, I have to make conscious decisions every day to look after my own well-being. Very conscious within myself that I often look at myself and think, if I take that path, I'm going to end up feeling worse tomorrow. If I go and do that, I'm going to be better for it tomorrow. Been fortunate to, through my own journey of therapy and healing and everything that goes with that, I've been fortunate to build a really strong, as I said before, network of people around me that support me. It's important for me to talk to my friends, to tell my mates that I love them, to tell my mates that I'm not feeling okay. I have many friends that check in on me with calls, text messages, things like that, when they know that I'm navigating life or they haven't heard me for a little while. And I try really hard to do the same as well, because I know how much it means to me. But if I have good people around me and support, and I make sure that I'm open and honest and vulnerable and authentic and genuine in sort of how I discuss how I feel and what I think and tell myself, then it all sort of works at the end of the day.
Wow. I think it's a challenge to share your heart out, to put your heart out and express the moment of weakness.
Yeah, it's not always easy. One thing that I do find is, if I can be vulnerable and authentic and share some of the deeper, darker, sadder, more challenging points and times, moments in my life, the relationships that I have with the people that I share that with, that then share something in return with me, are so much deeper than anything else that I would have experienced. And I'm fortunate to have all of those moments with people that I care about.
And going through that personal journey, how has your purpose evolved? And and what are the things which you value more, and the purpose?
I think the biggest thing that I value in life is impacting other people's lives positively, is having an impact for the people that I care about, for my family, for my close friends, and for anyone that I come into contact with. I sort of carry a thought and intent that I can better people's lives or add value to people's lives, and that's born out of my own journey. That's born out of me looking right back to my childhood and thinking, when I was a 9-year-old, 15-year-old that felt like I didn't have any friends, like I wanted someone to have my back. And at times I felt like no one was there. If I can be that person that's there for someone else when they're going through a challenging time, or if I can positively impact anyone's life through, whether that's by way of introduction or connection to professional services, or by what I do with some of the charities that I work with, raising funds for worthwhile causes, I'm really driven to do that every day.
And then can you define the kind of causes you want to support, and what's the kind of causes you want to back strongly and effortlessly?
I think different causes resonate with different people, right? So for some it might be homelessness or cancer or domestic violence. It might be animals, and you can give so much more to a cause, I think, that you have been touched by or have lived experience with. Big ones for me that have been a big part of my life is children's charities, particularly children's cancer charities, as I found my way into that sector, say 15 years ago, and I'm fortunate enough to have got to know a number of beautiful families that unfortunately have been impacted by childhood cancer, but I still look at them as some of the people that have really impacted my life, and I'm really driven to give back to that sector through my own experience, and then obviously through my journey with my own mental health. Mental health is a big one for me, so charities that support youth mental health, I do a lot of work with a charity called Zero to Hero, and then charities and organisations and people that support men's mental health. Again, that's born out of my own experience, and that's something that I'm really passionate about, trying to give back to and influence.
What do you see the biggest trends coming out of men's mental health or men's mental health issues or challenges?
Define trends for me.
What do you see more often happening? What kind of mental health issues you see?
Mental health issues. And it's so broad. I think this is one of the hardest parts about mental health, where if you look at something like, say, cancer, you know that if you've got a certain type of cancer, this is the treatment, or if you've got diabetes, you need to go have insulin or something like that. But with mental health, it's hard because everything is so different. Whether it's someone that's struggling with anxiety, whether it's someone that's struggling through experiences that they've been through, or different types of trauma, or drugs and alcohol, and obviously there's trauma underlying all of those things. You can't look at someone and say, oh, I know what's going to fix you. And you can't. I've found through my own experience that you can't help someone if they're not willing to open up or to talk. So if I sit here in front of you, you can't diagnose me without me saying, hey, Dev, like I struggle with this and I struggle with that, and this has happened and this is why. So I'm really passionate about getting particularly men to talk, to open up, because sometimes as guys, when you've got egos and image, and I used to be this person, you don't want anyone to see any weakness. Through my own experience, when I tried to hide everything that was going on for me, it only made it worse. If you looked at me from the outside and on the street, you might think, oh, Steve's great and Steve's really happy and he's doing really well, but then I'd go home and cry for 2 days and no one would see that.
Wow. Wow. And why do you think men, as you said, you want to get men to talk more and then share?
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case? That's the case that men don't share comfortably.
I think it comes back to maybe generationally and how we've grown up, and there's obviously maybe stigmas and things there that are sort of ingrained in young men that toughen up or chin up, or boys don't cry or anything like that. So again, speaking to my own experience and to the people that I know that I'm fortunate that have shared with me, there's a lot of ego and a facade, and you don't want to show any weakness to the outside world. You don't want to have like a chink in your armour or anything that someone can attack you or pick you apart on or anything like that. So you hide it all and you don't talk about it. You just push it down further and further down. For sometimes you push it down so much that you can't push it down anymore.
It just comes out.
Yeah.
And the coming out, as you said, not everybody brings their emotion out. Can go back home and cry for 2 hours. Not everybody can do that as well.
Yeah.
That crying out is, letting the emotion go.
Yeah.
Or whatever is built up.
I love crying.
But not everybody has the privilege of crying.
I never used to cry. And then I got to this point where I just started crying all the time because I had sort of numbed myself and pushed stuff down and pretended everything was okay for so many years. When I eventually started digging into it, there was so much more there than I might have thought to dig through and to go through that therapy journey with. And then as I went through that journey through therapy, I had to feel all of that. I had to face it all, and obviously it becomes quite overwhelming at that point in time, and I spent a lot of time working through that, lots of crying and things back then, but got to this point now where I really enjoy crying. I had a moment recently where I was struggling to deal with something, and I went for a drive and put a song on that I knew was going to make me cry, and just drove around bawling my eyes out. So it was great. I got it out because I knew that was going to help me process it. So I went out and sort of self in that situation where I knew I was going to be able to sort of work through that, and it really helped.
method of meditation.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's good fun. In your observation of your closer friends who are sharing their stories with you, what do you see most of them are struggling with beyond? Because I think we live in a lovely country.
Yeah.
And from the outside world, people think, what could go wrong? Everything is, everything is good here.
Yeah.
There's no big challenges. But what do you see, people who you interact with are struggling with?
Yeah. There's so much there, whether it is the pressure that people put on themselves to achieve an image they want to portray, or their struggle to find meaningful relationships, whether that's with a partner or whether that's with friendships or family or whatever it is. I think often we, or myself, I speak to my own experience, I've over the years struggled to be grateful for the small things. I've told you that I live close to the beach. I try to jump in the ocean every morning. I love birds. I look around and look at birds and it makes me happy. I never used to do any of that. And in a way, I'm grateful for all of the struggles that I went through, because as much as it really sucked at the time, coming out of that has given me the opportunity to learn to feel again and to be grateful for the birds and to jump in the ocean and appreciate the fact that I've got the opportunity to jump in the ocean every morning, or to just enjoy having a nice cup of tea and chat with someone that I wouldn't have previously been as grateful for. So we're super lucky to have all this sort of stuff at our fingertips.
Mm-hmm. There is a group. There's an idea that when men are walking shoulder to shoulder, I think you told me that when walking shoulder to shoulder, they share more, or when it's interacting front to front. Can you explain that idea and concept? It's just so fascinating. It's same two men walking side by side will share more versus sitting.
It's nice that you've remembered that. I can tell you've thought about it since we had that conversation.
Yeah, it was marvelous, and I remembered that I have done that many times, and yeah, it's marvelous.
Yeah, so when you're sitting in front of someone, maybe there is a bit of an ego, or it's a bit confronting, and you're looking at someone in the eye. Sometimes it's tough to open up naturally and organically. But when you're standing next to someone, particularly as men, I think, but I'm sure this applies for women as well, the barriers come down straight away. You're walking, so you're physically active. You're not looking at them eye to eye. Maybe you're getting a little bit tired while you're walking, but conversation just flows so much more naturally, and you open up, and you lose a little bit of that ego on the barrier and whatever it might be. But this is true in a work sense as well. My role with the law firm that I work for has some responsibility for the well-being of our team. I try to, rather than sit in an office, go for a walk down the road to the coffee shop that we met at just recently, or to go for a walk and sit in the park and sit on a park bench and look at the birds, sit there and talk to someone about what's going on in life. And again, the barriers come down. You can be more open and raw and authentic. I feel that a tool that I use in conversations like this is my own vulnerability. So walking next to someone, hey, I'm having a really bad week and I'm struggling with this at the moment, or this isn't going great, or whatever that is. And then if I can show some vulnerability and open up, they know it's safe for them to open up to me as well.
And you have seen the idea of walking parallel and talking to each other through your the walks you do.
Yeah.
Can you also talk about that how that has evolved, that concept, and then experiences of young men who are part of that group?
Yeah. When I was at that point that I mentioned earlier, where I was sort of at one of the lowest points of my life, I was fortunate that a friend of mine helped me get into exercise at the time, and we spent the best part of 3 to 6 months sort of exercising really regularly together, and I discovered running and walking and just the power that I had to influence my own happiness and well-being on a daily basis by a bit of physical activity. And that doesn't have to be running a marathon. It could just be going for a 3K walk, or for me it's jumping in the ocean every morning. But this journey over the years has led me to find opportunities and environments to impact my own health and happiness and well-being through walking. fortunate enough, as I said before, to be involved with a charity called Zero to Hero. So I did this Cape to Cape walk with Zero to Hero, 135 Ks. We do it over 5 days. I've done that 4 times with groups of people and people that were close to me or people that I didn't know that are now some of the most meaningful relationships in my life. Because for 5 days, when you're walking 25 or 30 Ks a day in the middle of the bush and you don't have anything else to do but to talk, and you're physically tired, you start opening up. And I feel like after those 5 days, the people that I'm walking with know more about me than anyone else in my life almost, because you've gone through that sort of challenge. So I made an effort to integrate opportunities like that into my life on a more regular basis. And coming out of that, knowing how the physical activity helped myself, having a passion for helping men open up. I had a mate reach out to me one morning about 4 years ago now and said, "Hey mate, like I know you enjoy walking. Can you go for a walk with me? Because I don't feel great this week and I want to talk to someone." So we started going for a walk, and we went for a walk once a week, which turned into once a fortnight. And then we started building this little community around that. So for the last 3 years, once a fortnight, I've been going for a walk with a group of mates, which has slowly, organically grown. We've got about 15 or 20 guys in a WhatsApp chat there that meet fortnightly, and I'm always encouraging other men to come down and join us on this walk. So we walk 5 Ks along the beach, jump in the ocean, we have a coffee, talk about what's going on in our life. But out of that, many more groups and conversations and a bit of a community has been built that group support each other on a daily basis through conversation or talking about the fact that they might be going through something challenging at work or in their relationship, whatever that is, and that's all grown out of that walking experience. And we still get to share that once a fortnight. We go for a walk and have a laugh, or I haven't cried for a little while, but I know that it's always there if I need to. That has then evolved again into a community that I've built around a charity called Spoke to a Bloke with a few mates. I think I mentioned to you that some friends of mine 6 months ago reached out and asked me if I wanted to help them bring this event to Perth, which has been run nationally and across the globe, called Walk for a Bloke. Walk for a Bloke is born out of this charity, Spoke to a Bloke, which was created after a group of mates and brothers lost someone really close to them to suicide. This gentleman's name that passed away is Nick. So just before Nick had passed away, he organised a walk for men's mental health. And in his honour, after he had passed, his brothers and best mates created the charity that now has walks right across Australia. And internationally, we had about 2,600 guys walk across the globe on the same day this year to raise money and awareness for mental health. It had never been done in Perth previously, but I was fortunate to get involved in organising the event, which is a 25K walk. We did it on the 22nd of March this year. And in its first year, we had 300 men walk 25Ks with us around Perth, around the river on a beautiful day. We raised about 100 grand for men's mental health initiatives across the country to get men to start talking, to provide mental health resources and subsidised professional support and mental health first aid training. But beyond that, we've started building another community off the back of that. So I've got about 90 guys in another WhatsApp chat that are organising these regular catch-ups, from going for a walk to catching up in a public park and having a barbecue and kicking the footy, to going for a gym workout at one of the boys' gyms, to we're talking about a men's pole dancing class shortly. There was a group that went for an ice bath and a sauna this morning. But there's 90 guys in the chat that might be labourers, they might be school teachers, retail workers, managing directors, CEOs, communicating on a daily basis in this chat. There's no division within the group. There's no one better than anyone else. It's like a general mentality of everyone that's in there has everyone's back, whether it's in this chat or whether we're going out catching up. I caught up with a number of these people last night, and we talked about the success that we had through the event, celebrated all of our volunteers and sponsors, talked about next year, and talked about further building out that community and giving other, particularly men, the opportunity to know that there's support out there and that you can have fun away from sitting at the pub having a beer.
Do you think it's the old form of tribalism coming back? As in, during the hunting and gathering days, men used to come together and hunt. So there's a joint activity, there's a camaraderie of that natural instinct of
Yeah.
Men coming together and doing something tactical with their hands or doing something together.
Yeah.
Is that is the natural instinct of all men coming together? Let's go for doing something. If it's a walk or whether it's a gym or it's the old. Do you think is that a natural instinct?
Yeah, I'd love to think so. I think if you look at everything that you've described there, you've got physical activity, you've got community, you've got conversation that all happens in an environment like that. With how we're living in 2025 and all sorts of different careers and the world, and you can probably get so caught up in life and going into the office and not talking to your colleagues and running home and cooking dinner or running around after the kids and going to bed, and there's not a lot of time there to socialise or to connect with the people around you. I know that through studies they've talked about men after the age of 30, 1 in 5 men report they don't have any close male friendships because life gets too busy and you're not at school or at the sport club, or you're just going to work and sort of locked into this life, and then the friendships and things all move away, and where do you go to start making new friends? But if you look back at what you just described there, years and years ago, when you are hunting or something like that together, everything like that, I think men crave was right there in that environment.
Yeah.
It's sort of overlooked these days.
And men thrived in that environment when they're together. They're doing good things and greater things.
Yeah.
Whether it's hunting for your family or farming together, but that physical work and then coming together as as a group is very powerful, and then that's a natural instinct. We have landed back to that because probably most of us was feeling that gap.
Yeah.
And that's why it's resonating so easily. So it's natural for people to say, "Oh, let's."
Yeah.
How much ever funny that idea of having a pole dancing.
That is fantastic. I'm really excited about that.
But it's how much. Yeah, but
How
it's
much
good.
fun's it gonna be then?
Yeah. We'll be silly. Boys being being silly, falling over and making fun of each other, and men come together through banter.
I think, sometimes get so caught up in everything that I forget, and I know that others around me forget to have fun and to play. So that's exactly that. That's me being a kid or like a teenage boy, or running around and laughing and joking and having fun with my mates rather than getting caught up in all the serious stuff in life and the stuff that's tough. It is important to reconnect to play and just having fun.
Wow. The mental health sector is fairly, diverse. Or on the one extreme end, people who would need, who are suicidal, they would need, some kind of housing options or some kind of, stay options or something very high end medical support or clinical support.
Yes.
On the other end is very light touch, probably, initial mental health, which is not diagnosed or undiagnosed both ways.
Yeah.
But not all of these challenges are supported or funded or managed in some way or form. So how do you see that the role of the governments, the communities, the local organizations to not just the one which is diagnosed and managed, but which is undiagnosed and unmanaged and unknown?
So much of the funding within the mental health sector goes to like crisis support, right? And there's very little from my own experiences in the work that I've done in the sector that goes right on the front end to what can we do to help people and prevent them going through this journey, which is what's big for me, is that preclinical prevention stage rather than getting into that clinical crisis support. It's a quote by Desmond Tutu that it says at one point in time we need to mess that one up.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me, yeah. What is it? It's at one point in time we have to stop pulling people out of the river and go upstream and find out why they were falling in or something like that.
That's a good reason. Yeah, good line.
I'll go back to that.
That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, you were talking about the mental health funding is crisis support only.
Yeah, so much of that mental health support funding goes to crisis rather than prevention, rather than being proactive and working out what you can do to assist and support people in the community before they reach that crisis stage. There's lots of organisations and in fairness, more and more of them that are doing really good work that I've seen in Perth, they're operating at this level and in the pre-crisis support services space. I was mentioning a moment ago that quote by Desmond Tutu that says at some point in time we have to stop pulling people out of the river and go upstream and work out why they're falling in, rather than,
Yeah, I think it's a good prevention, as you said. What do you see? Because we said, okay, mental health is a challenge in the community. Let's create a public service department which will solve mental health or take care of that challenge. But mental health should be sitting within the Department of Education, within Justice, within health, because people who are there, they should be able to add mental health as part of, which is a normal thing, rather than when you segregate that, the funding is less, the focus is less, but when it is part of the whole holistic conversation, because people don't come with, people are humans, that there's things, for example, you might have a disability and have a mental health issue. You are an elderly person and might also have.
Yes. Yeah,
so once you see this person as a whole, the solutions are much easier than saying, okay, there's you are multiple parties in one person, that this problem for you is...
we've got to go over here to look at this, and go back over here and look at this.
Yeah.
You could integrate it all. Just how do you do that? Where are the resources and where's the funding, and how are we going to pour so much time and energy into bringing it all together?
Do you think there's an opportunity to do advocacy for that kind of an idea or a concept?
Absolutely. I think there's so much more room for collaboration in that space too, right? There's so many organisations and individuals that are doing so much good work that might have the blinkers onto what they're doing and not be looking at what someone else is doing down the road. And if those two were to meet together, they could have more of an impact. And
why do you think there's also another stats which coming out that young people are not getting into relationships, or young people are more not socializing enough, so or not being that social? They are just probably sticking to themselves or very small group.
Yeah.
So why do you think that's happening with the younger people?
One of the biggest contributing factors has got to be technology. It's got to be phones, games, and apps, and all of that sort of stuff. I know if you look around now, and I can look around if I'm sitting in a restaurant and there's kids that are just sitting there with an iPad glued to the screen. iPads didn't exist when I was a child. The only choice that you had was to either sit down and, for me, play with my dinosaurs, or to go outside and kick a ball around, or look at the birds, or do something like that. I think it becomes hard to socialise if you've isolated for so long and you've sat there in front of a screen, or you've looked at your phone, or some of the apps and things that come out are so addictive for children now, with all of the streaks that you get. You've got to log in every day, and then you get all these prizes and things like that, and they're just glued to a screen, so you're not necessarily outdoors and socialising and communicating face to face or with friends or building real relationships when you've got all of that in front of you on a screen.
And do you think that cohort of young people, when they become adults, and then they will have families and have a mortgage, how would they have to go back to what process?
Certainly don't want to generalise or talk ill of anyone, put anyone into a bucket or anything here, but I think if you grow up without a lot of challenge, things are kind of given to you or handed to you, and you don't go out and experience the world and get knocked down or face challenges as a young person. When those challenges start coming up later in life, it's going to become so much tougher. When you go through exams, or you don't get into the course that one at uni, or you go to work and you fail, or your relationship fails, if you're not used to facing challenge, it's going to become so much harder and worse of an impact to face when you experiences that as a young adult or an adult.
There's another layer of addiction of gambling with with younger people and adults. What do you see the role of one is the communities around them and the government on gambling? Because there's a big gaming lobby or gambling lobby around to make sure it keep on going. And then there are people talking about to remove ads of gambling ads.
Yeah, they absolutely should remove those gambling ads and things. I still don't understand how they're allowed to advertise so freely and openly. Gambling's got to be a massive contributing factor to mental health in that if you're struggling financially, that's a contributing factor. If you're gambling, you're probably dealing with something else that isn't adding value in your life or something like that, that you're pushing away or not dealing with that root problem. And I think if we look around today, there's like jump on my phone and go on an online casino or something, or I could, like there's so much opportunity that you through sports betting apps and things like that it's all right there. And I know that there's a correlation between gambling and mental health issues, and as I said before, like some of those games and apps and things like that are almost setting children up with addictions with the way that it's all on your phone now. That I don't know, you'd be a lot better versed than me in this space in terms of policy and everything like that, but I don't know what could be done or can be done, or even where anything is at this point in time to have an impact on that, to stop the advertising and to curb the access to all of those sort of things.
Yeah, I think because once the idea of addiction is into play, and from a younger age, if you are used to some kind of information being hit onto you, you become more susceptible.
Absolutely.
And then that's radicalization 101 of any form, whether it's in some form of faith-based radicalization or radicalizing somebody for gambling. You just start young. That's the typical the mantra of people who are trying to have customers for lifetime. They are focusing on people or younger people.
It feeds like dopamine, right?
Yeah.
All of those lights and sounds and things, and refreshing your Facebook feed and getting likes, and that's just feeding almost a dopamine pathway through your brain. And I know within myself that I'm really conscious of not getting distracted by social media and not watching TV and all of that sort of stuff. So I haven't owned a TV for a number of years. I don't have Facebook. I don't have Instagram. I don't have anything else. I do have LinkedIn. I spend way too much time on LinkedIn because it's literally all I've got on my phone. So I just sit there like this. I don't have any Facebook or anything, but I was lying there late at night last night scrolling on LinkedIn. It's almost an addiction in itself.
Do you have close friends who are going through any form of journey coming out of addiction? And as you talked about the correlation between mental health and addiction, and you don't know what comes first, chicken or the egg situation. But what's your closer in-person experience with friends and colleagues?
Because of a lot of the work that I've done in the mental health sector and with men, and I've been vulnerable and opened up about all of my own experiences. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of people around me that open up with me, and I definitely have had and do have people around me that struggle really hard with various challenges with their own mental health. There's definitely a number of those that are related to experiences with addiction, whether that's in the past or whether that's current. When I say addiction, it could be even just alcohol, like using alcohol as a coping mechanism is a huge form of addiction. I can look around at so many relationships close to me that lean on alcohol and don't have a healthy relationship with alcohol, and I certainly haven't had a healthy relationship with alcohol at every point in my life either. I think it's encouraging to see that there's a big movement at the moment to people going alcohol-free and driving that positivity and change, and even just something super simple like that is making a healthy choice within your life that has a meaningful impact on your mental health.
Given a choice, what do you intend to do in the next coming years and decades? What kind of causes you want to support, and what kind of projects you want to take on?
I'm trying to get clear on this at the moment, actually. So I spent some time with some friends of mine in a facilitator training course a few weeks ago, trying to narrow down on what it is that exactly I want to do. Building community is big for me. So affording particularly men, say in their 30s, access to communities of other men that are doing healthy things and that support one another. I'm always going to give back to mental health. I want to have an impact for youth mental health, as we say, that sort of pre-crisis support, trying to encourage young people to talk about their feelings or to understand how to support their friends if they're going through a tough time. I want to have an impact for men's mental health, and I want to build communities around that support one another. I don't exactly know what that looks like yet, but it's always going to be a big driver for me. Like there's a really deep purpose in positively impacting other people. It's kind of all I want to do in my life, in any interaction.
I have quite a few circle of friends who were contributing fathers and married men, but when one thing which was very common with a couple of them, when they went through the journey with family court, just, they were contributing men and strong family men, and with most of them, what happened is, the kids were taken away, and I've seen them just spiral down very badly from a mental health point of view, because, when you're a father and you have kids and then that distance separation, the idea of separation, and I've seen there was, I could not pick up. They would have mental health challenges all their life beforehand, but when that happened to them, it's just.
I think about some friends of mine, as you say that, Dev, that deal with different mental health challenges and that have gone through the experience of a relationship breakdown and losing access to their children, and it's super sad to see some of these people that I really care about and where they've got to because they can't see their kids, and not to say that they've made every one of the right decisions along the way, but it hurts me to see that they go through this and that they don't necessarily have the tools to know how to deal with that. They don't have the support around them to lean on their friends. Then that's where things like addiction might creep in or rear their heads, or alcohol or drugs, or just making all of the wrong choices because you don't know how to deal with your feelings. And yeah, it hurts me thinking about this and hearing you speak about it and thinking about my own friends that have been impacted by it. And it's not just men, it's women too. It's like we all face these sort of challenges, but maybe there's more that could be done to give people the tools to know how to process this in a healthy way, and there's more support services that could be wrapped around that family court system. And I know you had Laura here recently, Laura Willox, who is a friend of mine that has gone down more of the wellbeing, mental health support path after a career in law, and seeing people that have gone through different challenges through legal battles that she wants to support in a different way. And it's nice to be able to see those extra services and support bolted on there as well.
From a point of view of the tools which you have learned and then used in your life, from an idea of the age-appropriate tools, giving to young people, whether they're in primary or secondary school, and embed that kind of education within the education system for young people, because when they come out with some skill sets to manage either anxiety or depression or mental health issues broadly. What do you think you would do?
I think there could be more done at any and every level, and age-appropriate ways to, even with children that are in really early years of primary school, to give them some tools to help them understand their emotions. There's people doing a lot of work at the moment in that emotional space, helping young people navigate feelings and emotions and challenge and all of that sort of stuff as well. But you could weave that right through school programs. There wasn't really any of that around when I went through schooling, but there is so much more there now. I've got lots of friends that work in the school space as external facilitators, but that come into schools and run these workshops. Many organisations that do it, individuals that go and do this, schools programs. So a number of the schools now have these programs that they work with young men that are going through their schools, take them away on retreats, give them like a rites of passage type experience, but take them out in nature, get rid of the phones and the technology, let them connect and bond and talk and be vulnerable and open up. There is a lot more of that around than I ever knew there to be when I was going through school. So that's encouraging.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.